Good evening, everyone, and really thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. Currently, we'll just give people at least a minute for the rest of us to join. Then we'll be able to proceed with the webinar itself. Thank you so much.
at the National Advisory Team on impact investing in Kenya. More to that, she's an active contributor in various sustainability forums, think tanks, and trainings. So once again, karibu sana to the forum. We encourage you to engage actively in the session. You can ask questions, share your thoughts in the chat box, and we hope to have a very engaging discussion. So karibu sana, Margaret.
Hey, thank you very much, Esther. Thank you very much, Esther. And I also want to appreciate Stratostaff for this invitation and also for everyone who has joined into this call. We hope that this is actually going to be a very engaging session, as Esther has indicated. So we want to encourage you to participate in the chat box. You can feel free to just chime in as well. And if you want to also raise your hands, we have the Stratostaff team who will help me to be able to coordinate that, because I might not be able to see from my side. So I think just to start us off, we just want to first of all just have a feel, and I know the team is going to put this link on the chat. So just copy this link to your browser, or you can also try and scan this code just to start us off and have a feel in terms of where we are currently in terms of ESG. So we'll just take 2 minutes to do this. I'll also do it from my side as well. You can scan this QR code, or you can copy paste the link on your chat box. If you've been able to access that platform, you can just give a thumbs up. Just take a minute or two to just respond to that. Thank you. I can see some thumbs up coming up. Yeah, I think once you access and you're able to respond, just give us a thumbs up. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you. I can see more thumbs up. Just going to take a minute. I'll request either Esther or William, they can continue to copy paste the link, maybe for the people who are still joining in.
Okay, I've shared it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So once you respond, just click submit. And I'll request William to probably just display the feedback that is coming in. So we can continue to just give feedback. Don't worry, there's no wrong answer. Thank you very much. I can see we have 8 responses. Maybe we can have 2 more. Anyone else who wants to respond to this? Thank you. I can see 1 more is coming up. We are 32 on the call. We have 10 responses. Asanteni sana. Asanteni sana. William, maybe you can scroll up to the first question. Yeah, we can see more responses coming in. Thank you very much. We're at 11. And we'll be closing it in the next, I think, 15 seconds. So if you haven't responded, you can feel free to just copy paste that link to your browser. If you're using your phone or your laptop, you can just copy paste that. Asanteni sana. Oh, wow, we are doing very well. We're actually at 16 responses, at least half of the participants currently. Thank you very much. All right. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think right now we are at 17 responses, 19. Asanteni sana. Yeah, so there's no wrong or right answer because I think every day is a learning journey. And even as we want to just understand what sustainability is, I think one of the things that we wanted to just start off and to just have a feel from the audience was whether we know what ESG stands for. And I can see 70% of the respondents, currently we have 20 respondents, they have indicated that ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And 30% have indicated that ESG stands for environmental sustainability and governance. Thank you very much if you have participated. And we'll be seeing shortly what ESG stands for. But I think this is quite encouraging given some of the trainings that we do, and we find that more than half of the participants don't get this right. So I can tell you, I think for this one, we can see at least more than half of the participants, almost a third, they've gotten it right in terms of what ESG stands for, environmental, social, and governance. And we'll be looking at that shortly. Thank you, William. I think we can scroll down to the second one. Okay, so I think the other question is whether you've been able to implement sustainability in your organization. I know some organizations call it ESG, some sustainability. What is the difference? We'll be looking at that. And we can see about 64% have not yet implemented. And that means that there's still room for a lot of things to be learned, and even to see how then can the organization implement sustainability. So thank you for that response. We can go to the other one. Okay. So for the other one, we're just asking, if you were to make a difference in this world without any barriers, what differences would you want to make? And I'm seeing very, very good answers here. We can see people are saying we would want good health for everyone. Some don't see any difference, maybe there's none. Some to eliminate wastes. We can see planting trees, access to decent work, alleviating poverty. I think I really like these answers. So a bit more on even the environment, on processes being sustainable, and even equity. So thank you very much. Afforestation, I think I can see that as well in terms of environment. So I think even as we are looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, you'll be able to see that some of these answers that you've given, they also cut across that. So thank you very much, William. So maybe just to start us off in terms of what is ESG, what is sustainability? If we go to the next slide, for ESG, as you have rightly put it, we've seen about 68 to 70% of the audience on this call have actually gotten it right. They've said that ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And I know there are many questions that usually arise. Then what is the difference between ESG and sustainability, which is what we're going to be looking at? And for sustainability is quite wide. But when it comes to reporting, you'll notice that most of the sustainability reports are done using these main pillars for the environment, social, and governance. So for the environment, I think recently we have seen climate change being something that is real. Just recently in Kenya, we saw a lot of flooding happening. We've seen a lot of damages that have happened because of these adverse effects from climate change, which is a whole topic by itself. And I think when initially some of these topics were coming in a year ago, or even 2 years ago, I know some of the organizations implemented sustainability a while back, which is quite commendable, but we probably didn't quite understand this until if maybe your car got damaged, probably through flooding or another, maybe even for the organizations that are here, you might find that you might have had to even revalue your property downwards because of the revaluation loss from some of these damages that have occurred. And apart from flooding, there are even other extreme, I think places like Australia, we've seen a lot of wildfire happening there. And most of these things are just things to do with the environment and even the actions that, the human actions that have actually adversely affected that. And we've seen most of the organizations and even the government currently, they have a target to actually plant 15 billion trees by year 2032. And we've actually seen quite a number of drives even from corporates trying to also, try to just plant trees. And I know there are also other ways that you can be able to also impact the environment. Then when you come into things like biodiversity as well, it also falls under environment, things to do with waste management. Currently, we've seen also NEMA being very vocal about some of these regulations and acts that they have. I don't know whether maybe on the call, you might be aware that there's actually a compliance act that we're supposed to comply with for Sustainable Waste Management Act. There's also EMCA, which is the Environment Management Compliance Act, which basically Coordination Act, which even came in actually a while back. I think it was 2009. They've done some revisions even in 2016. And basically what it just talks about is that we need to be responsible even in how we are managing our wastes. So for the environmental pillar, what an organization can actually think about is what impact do you have on your environment? Is it an adverse impact? Is it a positive impact? What legacy do you want to leave, even in terms of your environmental considerations to even as you carry out your business? Then when it comes to social basically the pillar for ESG, the S stands for social, and in a summary, social just looks at how do you relate with your stakeholders, be it the internal stakeholders or the external stakeholders that you have. So internally, I know definitely you'll have your staff. I know, I think on this call, we have majority of the team is from the HR practitioners. So things like, let's say, human rights. Are you able to ensure that human rights are being implemented in your organization? For example, even things to do with child labor. Do you have a threshold to ensure that you have a threshold for the age limit for actually employing staff? You might find maybe in some of the factories or the tea factories or the like, you might actually find that probably they might want to hire, cheap labor and hire children, as opposed to maybe them empowering them in terms of their education. So human rights is actually a basic rights. It's a whole topic by itself. And we'll be also touching on that later on, even as we look at the role of HR. Other ways in terms of the social impact, in terms of your suppliers, do you hold them accountable on how they actually carry out their back end processes, so that you're not also an enabler, maybe by giving business to suppliers who are probably adversely impacting the environment or even the stakeholders around them. We also have the health and safety. It's also a big topic by itself, but it also falls on the social angle in terms of how do you then take care of your staff or even your stakeholders in terms of health and safety. For the governance, in a nutshell, basically, when you're talking about governance, you're looking at how are decisions made in an organization. Is there ethics in this organization? And I'm sure for most organizations that are represented here, you'll be very careful to even deal with organizations that probably have reputational challenges or issues, because you might not want to be associated with that organization. So you, even as you do your business yourself, even as your own organization, you need to just ensure that you're ethical in terms of the decisions that you're making. You're able to also scan your environment to just be able to see what are the risks that are around you. And even in terms of just the corporate governance, right from the board level, how are you able to make decisions? What is your stance on things like corruption? Do you have maybe an anti-corruption policy which can be executed both internally and also with your external stakeholders? And I know for the diversity and inclusion as well as equity, it can fall under both the social pillar if you're looking at your internal and external stakeholders, but at the governance level as well. For the board committee members, it is also crucial that your board is also diversified, so that you don't just probably have one gender represented, or maybe it's not able to give equal opportunities to different diverse sector. And I know there are many debates about whether equity just means gender, but ideally what it means is giving equal opportunities for all. So thanks, William. I think we can go to the next slide. And if you have a question, please feel free to just put it in the chat, and then we'll look at it. So when you're looking at sustainability, you bring in the angle of profits, because basically what you're saying is you want to make sure that you're running an organization, not just merely by trying to make profits, but you also have an impact on people, you have an impact on the environment, and you're able to just have sustainable processes. I think one of the participants I saw indicated that they would want to have sustainable processes as one of the things that they would want to implement. And I know that is a very big discussion, because processes can be diverse depending on the sector that you're in. So sustainability, for this particular diagram, what we're looking at is mainly just the triple bottom line. And there are many definitions in terms of what sustainability is. And when you're looking at this triple bottom line, it's basically just a Venn diagram which has intersected the people, which is, remember, the social that we've looked at, the planet, which is the environmental pillar, and then there's also the profits, so that you're able to not just run a business and give everything away. If you're just giving everything away, it might not be bearable, it might not be sustainable. But when you're operating optimally, where you're making profits, you're having a good impact on the environment as well as your stakeholders, both internally and externally, then what you're saying is that you're operating in an optimal level and your business is sustainable, so that you're not only pursuing profits, but you're also able to make an impact where you are. So I think for the next slide, it just emphasizes the triple bottom line, which is either the 3 Ps or the 3 Es. And some of the definitions that have come in apart from this triple bottom line, which we've just covered for sustainability, in terms of even just being sustainable and making a positive impact on people, environment, and even economic. For organizations, there are things like even contributing to taxes. That's also an economic and a way of actually contributing to sustainability as well. There's also another definition that has been there since 1987, and the UN Brundtland Commission defines sustainable development as the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So basically here, what it just talks about is what legacy do you want to leave? Are you working towards a better future in a way that even the future generations can actually come and benefit from the decisions that you're making currently? I think it was last year where we saw a few youths from, I think it was Brazil, where they had actually taken the older generation to court. Actually, there were quite a number of countries that had been mentioned where they claimed that these countries have not been responsible in the environment. And what that means is that they're going to be leaving them with negative impact, and even all these wildfires that have been seen, the droughts, the floods, and all that. So that means basically that we also need to just make good decisions currently and also think about the future. So it's not just something that you do at once, but it's actually everything that you do in terms of sustainability. You can even think about things like wastages. Anything that is a wastage is actually not sustainable. So if you're in your organization, probably you are having resources that are not being utilized as they ought to, then eventually you will not be looking at profits. If you're not taking care of your people, then it's also not sustainable. And then for the environment, we need the environment for us to survive and also for the business to survive. And even for us to leave something that the future generations can come and still be able to live in. Some people have said that in future, we might not be seeing some animals that we normally see, or even some of the plants and species, I think in terms of biodiversity. And I think even there's some, quite a number of species that have been flagged that they might actually be at the, at the point of extinction. So this is the time for us to try and see what can we do. And you might not be able to do everything, but whatever you choose to do, I think just like the hummingbird, what Wangari Maathai said, the story for the hummingbird, maybe for the people who did not get to meet Wangari Maathai. She mentioned that in the story that there was a wildfire and there were some birds which, they were running away from the wildfire. But there was this particular one bird that really wanted to make a change. And this bird was trying to go and pick water and try and put off the fire. And you can imagine how little that water was. And the other hummingbirds kept on telling it, what are you doing? I mean, we should just be running away from this and you're not going to make a difference. But the hummingbird insisted that, for me, I'm playing my part. And I think the story just goes the way, yes, the hummingbirds were able to come together, try and put off the fire. And it did make a difference. And you might not see like you're making a difference, maybe yourself as one, but sustainability is something that calls for a concerted effort, a lot of collaboration. I think when you're looking at the SDGs, you'll see SDG 17, which basically just talks about partnership for goals. So you can play your role, and if you're able to also collaborate and partner even with other people in your industry or your sector, even the government, then this is something that we can be able to make a change little by little, and it's a journey. So I think when we go to the next slide, and as we go to the next slide, I'll just request maybe William or Esther to confirm if we have any question.
None so far. We can proceed.
Okay, thank you. For this slide is actually for discussion, and especially for the 36%. I know there are some respondents on this call who said that they have already implemented sustainability. And even for the ones who haven't, we just want to hear from you. What do you think is actually the importance of sustainability in a business, or why did you implement sustainability? And there are no wrong answers. You can feel free to indicate in the chat. Or if you'd like to chime in and unmute. Why is it important to actually have sustainability in a business? Oh, thank you. I can see Angelina has said MCA came into force in year 2000. Thank you very much, Angelina, for that. I stand guided. All right. I think I will pick on, oh, thank you very much. I've seen a comment. Thank you. Thank you for the comments. Emmanuel, is it okay if you can just unmute and just tell us, if you don't mind? Thank you. Thank you. You can keep the chats coming. So Emmanuel says sustainability helps stakeholders understand how an organization manages risks and opportunities around sustainability issues. Very well said. Thank you very much for that, Emmanuel. I can see Ozem Morioki has said need to maintain our businesses as a going concern, which is very important because you want your business to outlive you. For us as Sanlam, we are actually on year 106 years, and we believe it will continue to survive. But look at some of the companies like Coca-Cola and many others that we can actually give examples where they've actually clocked quite a number of years. So we're also looking at a better future and even something that is going to stay for long. So thank you, Ozem, for that. Angelina, thanks. You've said it's actually the right thing to do. And also for stakeholder requirements. I can see you guys had my notes, but thank you so much. And I know you're also, I do also acknowledge that I'm also talking to an informed audience. So thank you, Angelina, for that. And some of the stakeholders that we've also seen, people like clients, shareholders, especially during AGM, there's that push of when is your business going to start being sustainable? And out of that, apart from just compliance or regulatory requirements, there's that push as well from different stakeholders. So thanks for that. I can see Peter has said it helps the business to preserve and support the environment, as well as contributing to the global call on climate change. Spot on. Thank you, Peter, for that. We definitely need to be more responsible in terms of how we operate in our environment. So thank you. I think I'll take two more. I can see Brighton has said it encourages responsible resource management. Yes, that is very, very well said, because if you're not responsible in your resources, then that basically means that you'll not be sustainable. You'll just be leading to wastage. And the next thing you know, even as a business, you might have the going concern issues. And then Jacqueline says sustainability helps attract exceptional talent, those that are passionate about making a positive impact in the organization, thereby helping to attract and retain top talent. Yeah, that is actually correct. We've seen even recently in the news, some of the organizations that have been having issues with their human rights issues. And definitely what that means is that you might find that, in terms of the retention rate, it might be quite low. Nobody wants to go work for an organization where they don't feel safe, or there are no, health benefits. I know for some people, it might not really be an option, but for us, for the HR practitioners here, I think it's just a call to ensure that you are able to implement a safe and decent work environment, even for the staff, and also to maintain and retain talent as well. So thank you very much for those responses. And I think also, in addition to what we've gotten from the audience, I think also in terms of opportunities, there are very many opportunities when it comes to ESG and even sustainability as a whole. When you're looking at, let's say, for example, for an insurance company, there are many opportunities that you can have in terms of products. What kind of products can you have that can promote, or even just help people to mitigate any risks associated with climate risks, like, for example, even flooding as well. We've seen some of the companies which are coming up with standalone policies for that. When it also comes to even things to do with automation, there's actually something called digital sustainability, where you can be able to even automate your processes in a way that you reduce on paper, which means you're actually saving on the trees, and you're definitely saving on the environment. You're also saving on costs because people don't have to travel far, maybe to submit the papers that are needed, but you're able to even do that maybe through a system or through emails. And in that way, then you're being more responsible and being more sustainable. So sustainability actually has a lot of benefits, even in terms of opportunities, in terms of cost savings, and also in terms of trying to see how can you make it a better world. So thank you all for that. I think we can move on to the next slide. I know this couple of slides that we're going to be mainly looking at. We're just going to be looking at then for HR, how can you then be able to plug in terms of sustainability? And I think the caveat I want to make here is that it's not something that you can just go and implement at HR only and say that your organization is sustainable. It's better when it's actually across the board, across the departments that you have, in a way that it's a concerted effort, and also everyone is able to bring in, you know, what they can be able to do in terms of being sustainable. So I think we'll just be looking at some of those examples as we go along. So when you're looking at the role of HR, in the next slide, maybe as we start off from the governance side, remember when we're talking about governance, we're saying, how are decisions made in your organization? Are you able to pass the test of maybe things to do with anti-discrimination? So from your HR perspective, even as you start off, let's say, for example, at the recruitment level, do you have policies that govern how decisions are made at the recruitment level to ensure that you don't have any discrimination, even at the recruitment level, where you can be able to bring in, you know, things like diversity, equity, inclusion? And even at the board level, do you have a HR committee in place? And the HR committee can also have oversight in terms of the compensation, so that you don't find probably staff who are in, let's say, 3 or 4 grades lower than you, actually earning much higher than you. So where is equity, even in terms of, let's say, things like compensation? Are there policies in place? And these are actually ways that HR can actually plug in to be deliberate in terms of ensuring that there is sustainability. Then in terms of even code of ethics can be something that you can just ensure it will govern how even staff conduct themselves, both internally and externally. And I know most organizations, they require that staff sign off code of ethics at least annually, which is something that even as HR, you can be able to ensure, even at the point of recruitment, that this is something that that is in place. For human rights is actually one of the pillars for the UN Global Compact. They have 4 pillars. They have human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. So human rights can actually be something that even as HR practitioners, you can be at the forefront, where you can be able to deliberately embed human rights, even policies, or even you embed them in your HR manual or your staff handbook. Mainly when you're looking at human rights, there are 3 pillars that are usually there in terms of what is the state duty to actually protect human rights. So I think with even what we are seeing currently going on, and it's quite unfortunate that there's some businesses that have been burnt down, or even people's properties or cars that have been burnt down. And most of the people are asking, where was the government? Where was the police to protect us? So there is actually a state duty to protect its citizens in terms of human rights. And then when you come to corporates, basically what it talks about is what is actually the responsibility of you as a corporate to ensure that you respect human rights. And human rights are basic rights. when you feel like, you know, you've been discriminated or you don't feel like you've been treated with dignity. And there are many other examples that we can give for human rights. But basically what we're saying is, for you as a HR practitioner, you can ensure that you actually have human rights embedded in your HR practices, right from recruitment all the way to even the exit point. I think some of the challenges that we've also had is when maybe a staff is leaving, they're not really treated in a dignified manner. And you're forgetting that probably this staff might actually be able to come back. But if you're able to just treat them well, right from recruitment, even all the way to exit, then you might even find some people coming back where you might need that expertise again. So even other examples like the anti-corruption or anti-bribery policies, which you can actually be able to spearhead. Of course, maybe even in conjunction with your risk and compliance department as well, where you just ensure that these are things that are embedded. And I think the message for governance is you're doing a clean business. And even in terms of the decisions that you're making it based on the right policies. Then when we're looking at the next slide in terms of what then is your role in terms of the relevant laws and acts and regulations? I know there are quite a number. We might not have put everything here, but you can actually just ensure that whatever laws or regulations that are in place, you're able to comply with that. So we just put a few as well as some examples. I think we had mentioned about child labor, and even things to do with, you know, employee assisted programs, which can also fall under the social pillar as well, which you'll also be able to see. And basically, even as we're talking about this, you'll notice even some of these things in terms of implementation, they'll also fall under the S pillar, because that's where you're going to now actualize what you have put in policies in terms of either your internal or your external stakeholders. And I know for the HR practitioners here, currently we're talking about our internal stakeholders mainly, who are staff, but I'm sure you also have other responsibilities, maybe like, let's say, for example, if you need to do the NER report, which I think it's annual, or even just to give any regulatory feedback that may be required in terms of compliance. So for the other bit, for the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, it just borders on what we had talked about. And what they actually say, even as a business, you can try and know and see what impact do you have as a business in terms of human rights. Are you maybe someone who is causing adverse effects on human rights? Are you either causing, are you contributing, or do you have linkage? So if you're causing, that means then you are a direct contributor to adverse human rights. For example, if you're not maybe paying fair wages for your workers, basically then that means that you're causing that. And the remedy that can be there is you definitely need to just stop it and then just do the right thing. If it's, let's say, things to do with adverse environmental, let's say you're just polluting the water, which is being consumed by the community, then basically what that means is that you're also causing issues which will also infringe on the human rights. And then if, let's say, for example, you're looking at a contributor where maybe your actions, if they are joined together with another maybe organization, they both contribute to adverse human rights. So if, let's say, for example, your company has chemicals which in itself might not be harmful. I know chemicals, when we hear chemicals, everything is harmful. But if it's combined, let's say, with the other chemicals that are being emitted by another, let's say, factory nearby, in combination, both of you actually contributing to adverse environment. And then if you're looking at linkage, it can be, let's say, as a bank, you might be financing organizations that are actually infringing on human rights, or even in terms of the environment, the impact. So the question is, do you do a stakeholder analysis just to ensure that the stakeholders that you're working with, they're not going to cause any harm in terms of either the environment or the social bit or even governance, where you find maybe they are corrupt. And you might also have, reputational issues by engaging with businesses in that case. So I think I'll pause there and maybe just ask if maybe there's a question or a comment or an addition. You can feel free to unmute. Or to put in the chat box. Right. So when we're looking at then maybe HR in terms of the social pillar, you'll notice that, as mentioned, you might actually see most of the things that you're implementing at the governance level in terms of how decisions are being made, then they'll roll out in terms of the implementation under the social pillar, where now you actually implement these human rights, apart from just having a very well documented policy in terms of human rights. Are you really playing them out? And some of these things can come out when we see complaints either from staff, when you see things like fraud cases, where probably staff have been implicated. Now that we're looking at mainly HR, but can also be, even other external stakeholders, where probably as an insurance, you might find someone is coming to bring in a fraudulent claim. Then how are you able to deal with that? Then things like sense of belonging. Do your staff feel that they're actually part of the organization? So for example, today, if we did a survey, maybe on a scale of 0 to 10, and we ask the staff, how do you feel in terms of you belonging to this organization? Do you feel that sense of belonging? And I know for sense of belonging, it can be in many ways. And some of the HR practitioners, I know they can do maybe things like culture survey, where you can actually ask questions to the staff. But then again, you can also be deliberate in trying to see what activities can you do as HR that will make people to feel that they're included, that they have a sense of belonging. And even the decisions that you make, is there equity? Is there also diversity in terms of your HR practices? Even things like the pay, which we had actually mentioned earlier, things like gender equality in terms of opportunities. And I think for this one, I know the matrices that have been mainly there is just looking at probably women in leadership. What is the percentage vis-a-vis the men in leadership? But it also looks at what kind of opportunities do you have, and are they equal to everyone? When you're looking at generational equity in terms of even, I think now we're having the Gen Zs, what opportunities probably are you giving them, even in terms of, let's say, internships? We've seen some organizations doing very well, where they are able to even fund education and also give a chance to the students who qualify for that to even come back and do internship and even get jobs, actually, which I think is quite commendable. And then it's also important also to just embed sustainability even in your, both in your strategies. And I know for that, you can even look at it from the governance side, but also in terms of, let's say, things like KPIs or even the HR practices that you have. So I think as we move on to the next slide in terms of the environment. Oh yeah, sorry. I think we can go back. I think there are more examples for the social. We've seen most organizations actually have employee-assisted programs. And most of these programs are very crucial because you might be having some, very productive staff, very, highly effective staff. And for one reason or another, probably there's some things that are bothering them, which are maybe not work-related or even work-related, but if you give them a platform where they can be able to be heard, and I think most of the health, the medical insurance, they actually have some of these things like riders, sort of like a free. So if you can probably be able to have a package for your staff where they can benefit, let's say, from counseling sessions, so that if they have issues, they can be able to go see counselors without feeling, intimidated. And also to just have the mental wellness programs as some of the things which can actually be normalized, so that if there are people who are having probably whatever challenge, then they can feel that they can actually utilize these employee assisted programs. So these are actually some of the ways that even as HR, you can be able to champion that. Then I think for the green skills, basically what that means is even these roles in terms of sustainability and ESG, we've seen 64% from this audience when we were starting the call, they indicated that they've not yet implemented ESG. And you have that chance even as HR to see, then do you need maybe to recruit or even internally train and be able to probably even expand the role for someone's role where you can be able to even embed ESG or even some of these green skills that can be crucial for your organization. And then the culture, I know sustainable culture is also a big topic by itself. Apart from just the organization, there are many different ways that you can embed a sustainable culture, even from an individual level, even when you go home, or even when you go to a party, and you're able to just serve the food that you can finish, so that you don't have maybe wastage at the end of the day. If it's things like lighting, if the room is well lit, then you don't need to have all the lights on. You can actually be able to keep them off. Even for your staff, where maybe they're sitting, do they have a well ventilated place and even well lit place? So these are some of the things that you can be able to champion even as HR practitioners. For the ESG champions, it's one of the recommendations that the NSC ESG guidelines have indicated in those guidelines. And for the champions, basically, they help to facilitate some of these initiatives that you'll have as an organization to try and see what impact you want to make in the environment, in the social and governance, and they can champion, and they can even just cut across the whole organization in a way that it's a concerted effort, and it's not being left to only one part. And it really helps actually if you have also the top leadership involved, just for that particular support as well. So thanks, William. We can go to the next one. And I'll just pause a bit and ask if there's anything on the chat so far.
We are good. No comments or questions here.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Esther. I think when we are also looking at now the other pillar for the environment and HR, there are many ways that you can plug in. And we're not saying that these are the only ways, because the initiatives that you decide to do as an organization will also be, you'll also factor in your stakeholders, because as you come in and you say, these are the material things that we want to do, then you need to also bring in your stakeholders, both internally and externally. And I think given that we are seeing even what is happening in our environment, climate change is also quite a big thing. We're seeing quite a number of organizations plugging into tree planting initiatives. So this is something that even for yourselves, you can be able to be part of the champion to just be able to encourage staff to take part in some of these initiatives. And apart from just going and planting trees, you can actually go back and see, have these trees grown? So that it's also a tree growing initiative. How many have survived? Do we need to then maybe replant to be able to come back to the target that we had? Are we taking care of the trees? Do we have partners that we can partner with? for example, Kenya forests, where you can actually be able to go and not only plant, but also be able to grow the trees and come back years later and see, the impact that you've actually made. For waste management, I think it's something that we've mentioned, as well as the paperless office. And paperless office can actually also lead to an effective workforce, because if someone doesn't need to go somewhere and then come back, still finish other targets, but they're able to even leverage on technology on this digital age, then they're able to be more efficient. And you'll see that even things like work-life balance can come into play in a way that staff will be more productive, rather than them feeling like they're being overworked. So automation is also a key thing as well, which can also help to preserve the environment as well. And then other sustainable habits, some of the examples that simple examples that you can even implement in the office are things to do with doing away with single-use plastics. So the plastic that you just use and then you discard. For example, if you're having a function in your organization, you can decide we're going to have reusable glasses. It's very simple. Someone uses the glass, it's cleaned, or you can even buy some nice reusable water bottles, which they can actually be able to use, as opposed to always buying plastics, which are just single use, and then they're discarded, they go to the environment, they affect the ocean, and also in terms of, the waste management. So there are many other implications in terms of plastics. And I think what we've seen even with plastics, they're not really, they're not easily, they're not biodegradable. But if you're able to use other environmental friendly packages, then that is something that you can actually do. And you can even hold your suppliers accountable as well. If they're coming to supply things in the office, then they can also be sustainable as well. When you're looking at things like green building initiatives, I think this is something that is still coming up in Kenya. Quite a number of organizations are trying to get the certifications for green building. I think one of the challenges are if maybe the building was not green from the initial design, but there are ways that some of these experts are able to give you, they do an analysis and they're able to give you a recommendation on ways that you can actually be able to have your building as green. But even if it's not a certification, you can also decide to have things like, let's say, the sensor lights, so that the lights are only on, especially somewhere like parking areas, they're only on when someone is there. But if it's not, if there's no movement, then the lights are off. Things like even just having natural lighting, so that you don't have to have the lights on all the time, which is quite costly. You can actually decide to see how then can you at least ensure that your staff have natural lighting, as well as a good aeration. For aeration, you don't need the ACs on all the time. It will also save on energy. So there are many benefits as well, and also areas that I think as HR practitioners can plug in. So I know these are just some of the examples. You can feel free to put in the chat maybe any additional comment in terms of what HR can do in all the pillars, be it the environmental, the social, the governance. And if you have any question, you can feel free to unmute and also ask. So I'll just post there. And as I post there, I'll request William to play the video. Okay. Thank you very much, William. I think when we started off, we had asked a question to the audience in terms of, what impact or what changes or what differences would you like to see if you did not have any barriers. And I just want to welcome everyone, even if you are not on the call when you are starting off, to just put in the chat some of the SDGs that you think are relevant in your organization. Which SDGs do you think, whether or not you've actually implemented sustainability or ESG, which one do you think is relevant? Either to your organization or just generally relevant. You can just put in the chat box. If you want to say why, feel free to indicate why. If you also want to just unmute and give an example, we might have maybe people from the health sector. You might want to talk about maybe an SDG that speaks to that. So feel free to just indicate which SDG. You can just write numerically, maybe SDG this, SDG 10. Yeah, thanks. I think I've seen a comment here from Benjamin. Benjamin Chukwu is saying trainings like this on sustainability can also be initiated by HRs to inculcate good practices to stakeholders. I totally agree. Capacity building and trainings are very, very important. And I think lately we've been seeing quite a number of these trainings, and there can never be enough. Personally, I can tell you I'm still learning to date. There's still so many things that are still coming up, especially on the standards for sustainability and the reporting. So thank you, Emmanuel. I think that is Benjamin, that is well noted. Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you. You can keep them coming. I can see people indicating. Yeah, just write which SDGs you feel are relevant to you or to your organization. Thank you very much. Allow me to pick on Anthony, if you don't mind. Anthony Lunalo, I know you've indicated SDG 8. Is it okay if you can just unmute and just a few seconds tell us why SDG 8?
Thanks, Margaret. SDG 8 is on decent work and economic growth. And for me, it is, you cannot have economic growth without decent work. People need to get paid right, correct, paid correctly, their fair wages. People need to be paid decently, not having people queuing, in the hot sun to be given a few shillings. And then people need to be paid on time. When I find people paying salaries on the 5th, 6th of the following month, you've just disrupted some bit of the economic growth of even other sectors, like people who've invested in real estate. They need their money so that they can pay the various rents, mortgages that they have. So for me, it is decent work, the right amount of pay. You just don't assume that people are there and you make money from them, thinking that you'll sustain it forever. Yeah, that's it, Margaret, from me.
Thank you very much, Anthony. I wouldn't have put it better. You're right, spot on. I think we've been seeing cases where, especially quite unfortunate in the government, where some counties, you find workers haven't been paid for a number of months, which is very, very unfortunate. And I totally agree. You definitely need people for you to make profits. So it's important for us to remember that an organization cannot work without its stakeholders, both internally and externally as well. So even for your suppliers as well, just pay them on time. So thank you very much. I can see Emmanuel has indicated no poverty. Okay, that's SDG 1. Angeline has said gender equality. All right, very important. Partnership for the goals. All right, thanks. That's 17. I can see Jacqueline has said by creating employment and empowering people, we reduce poverty. Yeah, that's right. So HR practitioners, if you're able to employ someone, if you have a vacancy, please give them a chance. We've seen also, I think SDG 8 has also been repeated as well. Thank you, Esther. There's Andere. Sorry, I don't know whether I can pronounce your first name. Is it okay if you can unmute and just say something, Andere, on this SDG?
Thank you, Margaret. I think I'd highlight SDG 3 on good health and well-being as a focal point across all the other development goals, because ideally, lack of action on any of the goals would affect your well-being and health, and lack of being in a good health status and not being well generally would actually affect implementation of the other goals. So I'd say good health and well-being would be quite focal to the rest of the SDGs. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And how do you pronounce your first name?
Oh, thank you. My name is Liwelin Andere.
Liwelin. Okay,
Yes.
Thanks for saving me from that embarrassment. Yeah, but thank you for that contribution. Definitely, you also need to take care of your staff. You cannot expect people who are not feeling well to come to the office. If you're able to, as HR, to negotiate for them better packages, even for their medical care, it really goes a long way, even in terms of as well, even it can even touch on poverty. We've seen cases where people have had to sell a lot of their properties to be able to cater for their medical expenses. So as HR, definitely you can be at the forefront to do that. Thank you, Rose. I can see you've indicated SDG 1 programs that create dignified and fulfilling work. Asante Sana. And Emmanuel as well has indicated SDG 1. So thank you very much for your contributions. I think I can see we don't have a lot of time. I still had a few more additional slides apart from these main slides that we've seen. And I just wanted you guys to see then how does it look like, just in a summary bit in terms of the sustainability reporting and the regulatory landscape, both locally and also globally. So if we move on to the next slide, which is quite wordy, it mainly just highlights some of the standards that we've seen for sustainability. For example, the CDP, which was mainly the carbon disclosure project, I think they've renamed it now to just CDP. It mainly just looks at things like, okay, if I put it just simply in terms of your impact on the environment, especially the greenhouse gases and all those things to do with the climate change. Then at the center, you can be able to see ISSB. ISSB currently is actually under IFRS Foundation. IFRS is the International Financial Reporting Standards. And basically, ISSB, what they did last year in June, they tried to look at what are all these things saying and how can we be able to have sort of like a global baseline so that it allows comparability, because you'll notice some organizations will have different priorities as material topics based on the stakeholder engagement that they do. So maybe if you're in a different sector, you might find SDG, let's say affordable and clean energy, let's say SDG 7 might be more important for you. And if you're probably in a different sector, you might find probably for you, another SDG might be more, relevant and important for you. But basically what ISSB have done, they came up with some frameworks for reporting, and they have IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. IFRS S1 basically, and it's okay, you don't have to remember everything. I think basically what we're just trying to say is that there are standards and frameworks for reporting for sustainability, and you're able to report on those 3 pillars that we're talking about, either the environment, the social, or the governance. And IFRS S2 mainly actually speaks on the climate-related disclosures. It took over from another standard which was written, which is the TCFD. And TCFD is a task force on climate-related financial disclosure. So allow me to stop there so that I don't use too many jargons. But the good thing is, if you hear some of these things, then you'll be able to know, at least to be able to kind of like relate to some of them. For GRI, which is the Global Reporting Initiative, it's under the, it's what NSC ESG guidelines mainly proposes. And it just looks at also how do you report for sustainability. So SSB has more or less just tried to see how then can organizations globally be able to report. And for IFRS, given that they have quite a number of countries that have adopted it, we've seen quite a bit of traction. I think the early adoption has started, and the implementation is still going to be underway. And I know they've also when they issued these guidelines last year, they also requested for feedback as well. So for the next 2 years, it's also going to be an improvement for them as well. If we go to the next slide locally, we've mentioned, I think, the NSC guidelines, which came in, ESG guidelines, which came in 2021. We also have aspects of sustainability in other codes, like, for example, the CMA code. We also have the MCA. We have Climate Change Amendment Act, which we saw coming in last year after the Africa Climate Summit in around September. Then for the banks, we also have climate-related risks, where they've given guidance, and they mainly borrow from the TCFD as well. So they require disclosures on the climate-related disclosures for banks. And then for human rights, I think for that one, it's just basically what we had also more or less touched on in terms of the human rights as per the UN Global Compact. So if we go to the next slide, which is just a snapshot of what some of the topics that NSC has indicated in the guidelines. And you can see some of them, we've already talked about them from the discussions that we've had. And someone also mentioned about training, which is very important. HR practitioners can be able to also see how do you be able to even have trainings on sustainability and ESG. Data privacy is very important. We've seen the data protection office, they've been very vocal about data protection. So if you're having, especially for HR practitioners, you handle a lot of sensitive data. So you can just make sure that you can also be at the forefront to ensure that the data for your staff is well protected. It's not out there. I think we used to see when we used to buy the peanuts, you know, sometimes you see the papers that used to fold those peanuts when we were young. You see the things on that paper and you're like, okay. So you wouldn't want to see maybe people's payslips just flying around. So it's quite important. Yeah, so I think we can move on to the next slide, where we're just going to be looking at some of the risks and challenges and also future trends in ESG. And for the risks, I've tried to group them in terms of the risk categories. There are many explanations that you can give under each. Some of them, we've talked about it, like human resource risk, especially now that people are getting more and more aware, even in this digital age, people are knowing what their rights are. There's also that particular risk in terms of, litigation risks, regulatory risks, maybe from the regulator, they might expect more in terms of, as a business, how are you conducting your business responsibly in terms of your environment and also your stakeholders, and how you're making the decisions in terms of the governance. I think for strategy, it's important where ESG or sustainability also emanates from the strategy in a way that it's something that cuts across the organization, and everyone can be able to plug in wherever they are. They can actually be able to plug in. So for reputational risk is also important. We've seen cases where, and I think even just a recent occurrence this week, where someone was given a position as a director in one of the farms and one of the factories. And unfortunately, he had been implicated in some sexual scandal. And, Kenyans on Twitter have been, online tweeting about it and making a lot of noise. And Some of these things have also gone into the market where they sell their products in the UK and London. We've seen some of the letters coming in, and these organizations being told, if you continue having this particular person working for you, then what this basically means is that we will not continue with this business relationship, which means now they're holding them accountable to ensuring that they're not working with someone who, yeah, sorry, someone is asking a question. Okay, sorry, is there anyone asking a question?
No, I think her mic was on by mistake.
All
Yeah,
right, okay, no worries. Yeah, so there are a lot of reputational risk that can also come in terms of ESG. If we move on to the next slide, in terms of some of the challenges that we've seen in ESG, and I think there's someone who mentioned that we need to have more training, especially on sustainability or ESG. There's still that bit where we need to have more capacity building and training so that people can understand. So the lack of understanding is still a challenge. I think when we started this call, we saw about 68 to 70% of this audience who got the acronym correct in terms of what ESG stands for, the environmental, social, and governance, as opposed to sustainability. So it's environmental, social, and governance. And there are many other examples and a lot of things that, because it's basically a wide topic, but yeah, I think when you get to understand more about it, you get to know that it's actually quite wide, even in terms of even all the regulations and all that. Then for CSR and ESG, I think there've been questions. So what is the difference between the two? Most organizations, you find for CSR, it's just a one-off thing that they might do. So you just go and donate. Let's say you donate chairs to a school as a one-off. But for sustainability, we are looking at how can you make that something that is sustainable? How can you contribute in a way that these people will be empowered? So for example, if you're in the insurance sector, you can have affordable products for, let's say, your insurance policies. If you're in the banking sector, you can decide, like now we are seeing CBK, they are having a green finance taxonomy where they want to, to try and see how can they fund initiatives that promote, the better environment. So you can even have better rates, maybe lower rates, for example, something that is more sustainable in the long term, or even things like embedding things like solar in your organization, and as opposed to these other types of energy. So there are many examples that we can give on that. For the regulatory, it's still, we're still seeing a lot of regulations coming in, especially from the EU. Of course, it's just a matter of time before some of these things are pushed down to us. But I think this, and even the slide that I had showed you with so many regulations, sometimes it's a bit uncertain. I think for Kenya, we're still seeing, like, I think there's one that came in, was it last month for climate change? There's something about climate change. I need to just confirm, but yeah, so there's still a number of regulatory things that are actually coming up. And then for short-termism is where you're looking at sustainability as a journey, as opposed to just a one-off. So the challenge is that some people think this is just a one-off thing and that's it, but it's actually a journey. So if you embed automation in your processes, you're able to continue being sustainable because you're going to reduce on your adverse effect in terms of the environment, just as an example, or even in terms of waste management, where you're able to even recycle and contribute even to circular economy, as opposed to a linear economy where you just, after using, you discard. But if you're able to also reuse some of these waste products, you're being more sustainable. The other challenge that has been there is lack of comparability. And I think SSB has the standards that we had mentioned earlier in terms of the IFRS S1 and S2 will more or less like be able to address this. But it's also an improvement journey, and we'll be able to see what are the changes that are going to come up. For greenwashing, mainly just looks at an organization exaggerating their efforts, especially in terms of what they're doing for the environment in terms of their report. So some of these challenges can be averted if probably you have assurance. Assurance can either be internal assurance, where maybe you have an internal audit to come and review your audits, your report, your sustainability report before it's issued, or you can have an independent auditor to just come and give assurance to just ensure that the greenwashing risk is averted. And then incentives, I think one of the challenges that have been there is that ESG or rather sustainability is seen like a cost center. But yes, it can be a cost center, but there are actually more opportunities in sustainability. If you look at it in terms of maybe the organizations that are represented here, what impact would you like to make, or what opportunities can you be able to do and actually create new markets or new products in a way that it can be sustainable. And I think the discussions that have been there is that the opportunities that are there actually in trillions of dollars. So it's just something, it's just something that you need to see, how can you be able to leverage on some of these opportunities as an organization and be able to just maybe partner or be able to make a better future for other people, and even for yourselves in terms of business continuity. So if we move on to the next slide, it's just looking at the trends. What are we looking at? How does the future look at? I think we've mentioned the assurance, which is definitely very important in terms of just having independent reviews. We're looking at litigations where people are more aware of their rights, and people will also demand more in terms of you as an organization. How responsible are you in terms of your environment or stakeholders, or how you make decisions? And actually some of these things, we are seeing them into play. Some of the businesses that are coming in, you find maybe some organizations will have some checklists that you will require to do, and some of them will actually have ESG as part of that checklist. Or even investors who want to invest in your organization, they might want to see, are you being responsible in terms of ESG? I think the rest we've kind of like alluded to them, so we can go to the next slide. Yeah, I think in HR, some of the positions that we've seen, I recently also shared this somewhere, and I think we saw that some of these positions are already coming into play in Kenya. So I don't know that the HR practitioners here, you've already advertised maybe for the chief fund officer or the chief, I know chief sustainability officer are still coming up. Or even some of these other positions like maybe chief inclusion officer, chief diversity officer. But some of these are actually the emerging job titles that we've seen out there. And there was a student called, I think this is a German name, let me not pronounce it, but they came up with a paper where they recommended, green human resource management, or green HRM. And basically what they were saying is, even as HR practitioners, if a company is to adopt an environmentally aware approach to its activities, the employees are the key to its success or failure. So basically what that means, you still need to take care of your internal stakeholders as well, especially the employees. Let's see, which other slide is remaining, William? All right, so I think we've actually come to the tail end, and the parting shot here is, as you look at that diagram, one side is green, very healthy grass. The tree is quite healthy with healthy leaves, green, but on the other side, it looks like a desert. And I think the question that we just want to ask is, what legacy do you want to leave? Which side do you want to leave a legacy on? So that the decisions that you're making now, apart from just the environment, even in terms of your stakeholders, or even how you do business in terms of governance, what legacy do you want to leave? Because sustainability is a journey, it's a continuous journey of improvement, and it's just not a one-off thing, as we saw in terms of short-termism, but it's everything that you do. So I just want to end it there. I can see we have about 4 minutes. And even as we end it there, we want to welcome questions, but I'll request either William or Esther to put this link in the chat. We'll just take 1 minute or two to get feedback from the audience and also invite any questions. So please feel free. I think as you respond to this link, William, we have the link.
Esther's supposed to share. Esther, can you share?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've seen.
Yes, I just sent it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Esther. Yeah.
So in case you have a question, they can just raise up their digital hand and we'll see it.
All right. Yeah, question, comment, addition. There's always something new to learn. So if you want to also add something, you're welcome to. We can just copy paste that link in the chat to your browser. Please give the feedback. You can just submit the feedback. We'll be looking at the feedback in a minute or two. It will take you, I think, less than a minute to just give the feedback. And I think if you allow me, I'll just speak on someone to just say something. I think one of the active participants we've had today is Angeline. Angeline, thank you so much for your feedback. Do you want to unmute and maybe say something?
Okay, good evening, participants. I hope everyone is fine and safe from wherever they are. I think this is a very important training. I think I've been at it because this is my space. I'm an ESG specialist working
Nice.
with one of the commercial banks, but I really wanted this training because I have tried to show that this is an agenda that does not belong to the ESG unit. Each and every person, starting from legal, procurement, they have a role. So for me, I really distributed and shared this invite because I really wanted most HR professionals to hear that it's not my duty. It's for everyone in the organization, and we can all have a sustainability culture within an organization if we know what our role is. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you so much. I think we can give Angeline a digital hand clap. I'm also looking for the icon. We can just give her a digital hand clap. Do we have anyone else who wants to say something? As we also welcome the comments in the chat. Thank you very much. I can see the digital hand claps. Asanteni sana. Thank you, Angeline, for your feedback. All right. Anyone else who wants to chime in? And I think I'll request William to share the screen which has the feedback. As William shares the screen with the feedback, we can give one gentleman. Godwin, do you want to go?
No, I just wanted to appreciate the session.
All right. Thank you.
and say thank you for what I've learned today. I hope it will continue and tackle some other topics too. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Godwin. I think I've seen a hand up. Was there a hand up? Okay, maybe not. All right. So I can see we've overrun with a minute. I'll just request maybe we will just go through the feedback. Asanteni sana, I can see we have 9 responses. Are they 9? Yeah, but 6 responses on the first one. The question is, what other sustainability topics would you like to be trained on in future? Someone has mentioned gender equality. Okay. I think gender equality, if your organization, sorry, there's an echo.
Salama's iPhone. Salama, kindly mute. Hi, Margaret. I think we can proceed.
Oh, sorry. Many apologies. I was speaking while on mute. Can you hear me, Esther?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so which other topics? I've seen someone has said gender equality. What I was saying is for the organizations here, which I know probably have are members of the UN Global Compact. For us, we are members of the UN Global Compact. They have a program on gender equality. And I think it's just about to start. If you're able to plug in, you can actually plug in. But yes, it's definitely a topic that is very important and can also be considered as well in terms of, detailed training on that. And then someone has said nothing more than repeating this gospel until the business understands and integrates ESG into daily operations. I can't put it even better than that, because once you integrate ESG, then that means that it's not something that you're doing as a standalone. It's something that is integrated, and actually that is the best way to have it. Then audit mechanism for SDG, is it happening? What I know, there are some organizations that actually are actually having, external audit. I know some of the big fours are already even doing the external audit on sustainability. And I don't know whether you meant sustainability or SDG. I'm assuming it's maybe the sustainability reporting. So yes, it is happening. And it's something that is still emerging as well. Green building, yeah, it's a good topic. And I think even for that one, they're experts. Actually, there's for certifications, there's something called EDGE certification. There's also LEEDS certification, LEEDS. And maybe even for this topic, we can maybe Esther also get some of the experts who do this certification to come in and give us more insight as well. But it's also a very good topic, and I'm sure there are many initiatives that can be done on that. And then implementation matrix, I'm also sure if you can give maybe more context on the implementation matrix. Do you mean like how does an organization implement? I think for the person who has asked, if you don't mind just unmuting and giving a bit more insight on this. Okay, all right. So I'll assume then you're talking about where do you start? It's a good topic. We can always look at that. And I know even for the NSC ESG guidelines, they've given that. And it's something that definitely it's a good topic to have. There's also the intersection between AI and ESG. Definitely a very good topic, as well as even the innovation industry, innovative and infrastructure. Okay, that's well noted. And then sustainability and procurement, well noted, because your supply chain also contributes to the impact that you have, and you can either be a linkage or you can be a contributor in terms of what effects they have on the environment or even the people. Okay, thanks. I can see the next question was any other question, any other comments? Most of the comments are, they indicated there in terms of it being a great training. They've learned a lot, great session, very informative, excellent presentation, recommend courses for deeper understanding of SDG topic. There are some courses that I can recommend. Some of them actually also free. If you're on LinkedIn, if you follow some of the pages, there's one by Corporate Finance Institute. It's called CFI, and they actually have an introduction to ESG, a very good one. Actually, that was the first one that I did when I started out, and it has videos, it has questions at the end, and you also get a certificate. And then also, if you're on LinkedIn, you can also pay, I don't know how much it is in dollars. I think sometimes it was ranging between 4,500, around less than 5K per month, where you're able to access a lot of learning materials on LinkedIn Learning. And there are quite a number of courses. Myself, I've actually done most of those, and you even get certificates at the end of the training. So that can also be a way, and I'm sure there are also many that are as well free courses if you also Google. There are also some which you can do, maybe like the GRI, the certification. So there are many topics and many learning that you can do depending on what you're looking for. Because like for myself, I did the sustainable business strategy, which basically just looks at the overall business. If you're looking at the GRI certification, it's more on the reporting. So the different trainings that you can actually do, even just to understand. But I can tell you, you might not get one which will have everything, because sustainability is quite wide, and you can be able to see what you can be able to start with. And then the other question is, make an efficient and sustainable environment for the community, like building houses with glasses to enable use of natural light to save on energy. Okay, thank you for that. All right, so great insights. Asanteni sana, you guys have been a great audience. And thank you even for your patience. Apologies, we've overrun. And I think I want to just give back the meeting to Esther. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. Kindly to our participants, we can clap for Margaret with our digital hands. That was a very informative session. We've learned a lot. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and thank you for everyone for the commitment to learn. May we carry the knowledge forward. Just a minute, Anthony, please say hi to us and kwaheri and close the session. Lakini Margaret, thank you so much. It's been great.
Yeah, let me put on so that people see a face, put a face to a name. Yes. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking time to come for this presentation. My name is Anthony Lunalo. I am the General Manager for Stratostaff. Yeah, so Benjamin asked about, Benjamin actually said a key thing, this thing should be, sustainability should be initiated by HRs. It's very true, Benjamin. In fact, this was initiated by Esther. Esther is our senior HR officer, manager, sorry, at Stratostaff. So yes, they're taking the forefront in sustainability. And one key takeaway from me is sustainability is not a department. ESG is not a department in an organization. It has to start from the time you wake up in the morning. Yeah, you have to live it, breathe it throughout the day. Margaret, asante sana for taking time to be with us this afternoon. The participants, the organizers, William, Esther, and Tim, who are here, asanteni sana. It is nice to have these conversations. I can even see old acquaintances who are still Stratostaffers, like Uba Kasibo, who's here in the meeting. Karibu sana. It was a pleasure seeing you logging in. So to everyone, I wish you the best this evening. But as I finish, I just need to take 30 seconds of your time. Stratostaff is a HR staffing firm. So we do staff outsourcing, we do executive recruitment, we do interim management. We are based in Nairobi, Kenya, but we are soon opening up in the region with all these things that's happening in the world. You need to be able to spread your wings. So we're opening up in Tanzania. We should be finalized by end of next week, our offices, in terms of getting our paperwork ready there. So we are ready to support you in Kenya, Tanzania, and soon in Uganda. So we want to do regional expansion very soon. So if you have any HR needs end-to-end, just reach out to us and we'll be able to support you. Kwa haya machache, asanteni sana. Thank you for taking your evening. I trust everybody is safe wherever they are. And the next one should be coming in very soon. We were having a discussion this morning as a senior management team. And the next topic will be there very soon for you to join. Asanteni sana and have a blessed evening. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, Anthony. Kwaheri, everyone. Thank you to Iona joining in from Europe. She got the link from on LinkedIn. So thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone. Kwaheri.
Hello.
Hi, Emmanuel.
You forgot to send the link.
Sorry?
You're supposed to send us the link to watch the video.
Okay, that will be shared together with the notes.